These retailers were never official partners with Apple Pay, but they actually did have the technology, as we understand it, to use Apple Pay. How big a deal is this?
Yeah, I don't think it's a big deal at all. And as you said, is that they were not announced customers. And this whole merchant-customer exchange is really a dream of merchants to be able to somehow get the credit card companies out of the transaction. It's going to be a very tough road to haul. And Target has signed up with Apple Pay, and that's one of the merchants that's listed as in the MCX consortium. And so you've already had a major defect. So I wouldn't be surprised if over time you start seeing players like CVS drift back to Apple Pay.
Now, part of their dream, as you call it, is to eliminate credit cards from the transaction. So, Corey, the retailers wouldn't have to pay credit card swipe fees, and they would be able to collect a lot of data about you. Tell us about the vision behind this system.
So these are fundamentally opposed views, and this is why Gene Munster's wrong once again. Because what's happening with these retailers is they want to use customer data to target customers better. They want to know who their customers are. They want to collect that information, slice and dice it, use big data, and market directly to those customers. The Apple Pay process really takes that ability away. Now, yes, customers can decide they want to sign up for an affinity program and have some kind of relationship with those certain retailers that they want to. But fundamentally, Apple Pay keeps the customer information private to the customer, doesn't share it with the retailer. This merchant-customer exchange that Target, Best Buy, CVS, Rite Aid, Walmart, and so many other giant retailers have signed up for, they've yet to launch, lets them collect the customer data. These are at opposite ends of the spectrum. They have opposite goals. Walmart doesn't want to not know who their customers. They want to know everything about their customers. Apple Pay goes against this. So I see some battle lines being drawn here that CVS and Rite Aid, whether they win or lose, I don't think this is the last major defection we'll see.
What about the customer? What about what I want? What if I don't want these retailers to get that information? Has anybody thought about asking us?
Yeah, I think that's going to be Apple's pitch about this thing at a certain point, especially if they really go to battle with these retailers. Now, Apple has done battle before. Apple had to win over the music companies one by one, famously when they launched iTunes. And they could be setting up for this kind of battle with the major retailers. They've had, I think, a kind of surprising uptake by a lot of the banks on the back end. But the front end, the retailers, Gene did point out just a week after they announced it at the iPad announcement, how many major retailers said they would sign up with Apple Pay as something of a surprise, because that's where the ground war is being fought with Apple Pay right now.
Gene, can any of these retailers use both? Can they enable Apple Pay but also use other kinds of technologies depending on what the customer wants?
Yeah, I think that they can and they will. And ultimately, there's different types of mobile payments right now. There's Google Wallet, this is NFC enabled. And so I think you're going to see kind of a broad collection of these. The one that probably wins is the one that's easiest for the customer. And that's kind of some of our apprehension around this, the merchant customer exchange is how, what the motivation is for the customer to use this. It needs to be widely accepted and easy to get up and running. And right now, Apple Pay is easy to get up and running. It's not widely accepted, but really none of them are. So ultimately, you're going to probably see an array of them.
Now, I wonder, I would like to distinguish between something being easy to use and something actually being innovative and moving the payments industry forward, because Mark Andreessen recently told me Apple Pay really just plugs into the existing system, the existing credit card companies, but it's not, in fact, that innovative. Gene, how would you respond to that?
Well, if something is used by consumers, it's true that the infrastructure has been there, it's been in place. Google Wallet has offered this. The way it's used and the simplicity of the integration within the fingerprint reader, the Touch ID, is something that is unique. And I think just the awareness piece of it is an important part. So I would agree that the technology is not what's really differentiating here. I think what's making this a difference is consumers are aware of it and willing to give it a try for the first time.
Corey, would you say that something that eliminates the credit cards companies is more innovative? I mean,
well,
why
it would be for the
why
merchant side. On the merchant side,
merchants
merchants are paying 2% to the credit card companies, right? They don't like giving up 200 basis points, especially when that, for a lot of retailers, is their profit margin, or they're looking at, supermarkets, less than 2% profit margins. Big retailers often looking at 4 to 10% profit margins. You give up 2% to the credit card companies.
That's a lot.
And Apple's sort of locking that system in. And I think maybe Andreessen's point of view is BitPay. or Bitcoin, which would allow people to, of course, not give up anything. And so when you think about what would really change retail on a fundamental level, getting rid of credit cards, getting rid of Visa in the ways that Bitcoin would, may be part of sort of his focus there, and the understanding that what Apple's done is instead of saying, hey, we're just going to go straight to the bank, they're saying we're still going to go Apple Pay through the credit card companies to the bank. 2% to the credit card companies, just let us piggyback on your existing infrastructure. It's very clever and interesting that Apple wouldn't try to completely change the payment systems business to the benefit of the retailer, just trying to make things a little bit easier for the consumers who, at least in this country, don't seem to care about that 2%.
And yet, as we know, innovation in payments happens so slowly, so you wonder, it's difficult
because
to
it works.
Think about what the next step would be.
Consumers aren't begging for something different with payments. In this country, they've gotten very used to just using the credit cards that they have, using the systems that are in place, despite the issues around fraud, despite the fact that the retailers are making a lot less and the consumers are paying higher prices as a result. In Europe, that's not the case, but in Europe, you've got payment systems where the credit card VIG, if you will, has been limited by law and maybe limited further. That's why in Germany, so few people use credit cards. In this country, they use them like crazy because there are no legal limits as to what the credit card companies can charge a retailer.